I said, okay, we're going to code box braids and locks, and we're going to put these bad boys on the blockchain, and we're going to do that. And my goal is to make sure that we're showcasing, like, the beauty when it comes to our, our hair, the art that goes to it, the process, the time. Sometimes when we get our hair done, it hurts, right? Like, and people don't understand that. And that's kind of I want to showcase like the colors, but like also you feel dope and fresh when it's done, right? It's these beautiful things that I was trying to bring to life through this project. And I wanted to show people like what we do, especially as Black folks, people that, get box braids and locks. We do these things, yes, because we want to protect our hair, but this is us. This is also our beauty. We love these things. This is art to us as well. We love the designs that we make with them. We love how they look. We love how they sway and they win. This is us, and accept us for us.
GM, and welcome back to the NFT Now podcast. I'm Matt Medved, and today's guest is Ed Balloon, a talented Web3 artist, musician, and community leader. His new collection, Beauty Supply is Out of Do-Rags, is out today on Prohibition and tackles Black identity through the lens of generative art and music. This was one of my favorite conversations we've had on the pod to date. Ed and I go back and forth. We've got some spicy takes and ultimately get a great glimpse into the mind of a very prolific and multidisciplinary artist in this space. Before we get into it, I want to encourage you to sign up for our weekly newsletter at nftnow.com/newsletter. Each week, we distill everything happening in the space into actionable insights straight to your inbox to help you keep a finger on the pulse of Web3. Without any further ado, Ed Balloon. Ed Balloon on the NFT Now podcast. How you doing, man? So glad to have you on.
I am doing good, and I'm so happy to be here. Finally.
Finally. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and I'm really excited we're getting you on because it's a super impactful time. You got some exciting new project, which we're going to get into. But first, for those who may not know the Ed Balloon story, the saga, give us just like a brief background of how you got into Web3.
Woo! It's every time I get this question, I'm just like, man, how can I give it in short? We're going to try it. We're going to try this time. Pretty much what happened was, 2020 happened, COVID, and as a musician, we were all like, I was supposed to go on a tour and the tour was canceled. And so we were just all left at home, locked out. I actually was kind of doing a side job at the same time. So I was like at the doctor's office and stuff. But long story short, I had this puppet idea and I was like, we need, and I created this world for it and was trying to do a TV show with it. And that didn't get anywhere, unfortunately. This is all still during 2020 and then kind of into 2021 now. And then I heard about NFTs, but still no one was like giving me enough information. And then I came on Twitter and saw the whole Twitter space of NFTs and clicked it and then went down a rabbit hole. And then from there, started doing, started seeing some issues with the space. And so came in, with the idea of being an artist first, but started building and, trying to find ways to bring visibility to artists and people of color in, the Web3 ecosystem. And while doing that, then decided to it was mostly like everyone saying, hey, you're an artist, you need to start dropping. And I was like, okay, let me do a drop. And let me finally drop a project that was around my puppet. From there, started doing more drops and then ended up doing my Run Ed collection, which I dropped last year. And I'm currently, which also had me fund my pilot that I'm short film pilot, but also allowed me to create this generational wealth fund where I was able to buy art from artists of color, specifically Black artists in the Web3 space. And yeah, I've been doing that, and also still trying to, find ways to bring visibility to other artists and encourage other artists in the space to keep going, and, trying to be as much of a supporter as possible. So yeah, that is kind of the bit of my Web3 journey thus far.
Love it, man. I love it. No, because no, that was good. You clocked in way under many. So that was excellent. I remember we first connected on Twitter Spaces, and I remember like you just brought this energy, this passion that was like real palpable. And I remember when you dropped the Run Ed collection, and I also have this distinct memory of like walking into, I think it was like a Block Party All Ships event, like South by Southwest, like maybe like 21 or so. And I'm like, I'm just going in, I hear this like dope music on the stage, like somebody's rocking out, and I roll over and I look over and it's you, and it's Ed Balloon. And like, I knew you mostly for your visual art at the time. I knew you for the puppets. I knew all that. I actually didn't know you were a musician and that you performed like that. That was super cool to see. So like, also curious to hear, like, obviously you're a multidisciplinary creator. You're somebody who thinks, you think visually, you think, in terms of moving images, you think in terms of art, and you also think in terms of music. Like, how did NFTs kind of like change the creative canvas for you?
It definitely, I would say, it gave me so much more flexibility. I think outside of Web3 as artists, they're like, okay, do video, do song, then cover art, and it needs to kind of be, there's this, it's very linear. And when I came into Web3, it's like, no. It's like, what is going, at least for me. And I honestly, when I came in and I was like hearing people talk about it and their work and stuff, it also just allowed me to see it as, oh, this is a place where I can create, be honest, disrupt, like give it. And so I was like, absolutely. So when it came to like, starting to do like my music drops, I was like, how can I find a way where this kind of looks more like, I would say I want, like, I would have conversations with people and they're like, yeah, it would be really cool to have like a music type of video, but it's also like something that you would want to put in your living room and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh man, how do I find a way to like, do something like that? And to think about that and have that in my head, and not to be strict to like, what I would want to do, but to just have that in my head and to think of like, oh wow, like me making something is also me like creating fine art, it's me painting and stuff like that. And I never really like looked at making stuff like that when it came to music until I came into this space. And so like having conversations and just seeing other people like create, and even though they weren't musicians, it also just helped me visually to like see like, oh, maybe I would want to tap into that. Or do something where maybe if it's just a still photo of like me, I can have my eyes move, my mouth move and stuff like that. But yeah, and then also like, doing the performance and stuff like that. I really always wanted to make sure that I, in the Web3 space, that people did know that I was a musician performer. And I saw that it was, people didn't really know. They knew about the puppet and they knew about like the visual stop motion thing, but they didn't know that I also was a musician, even though I would say, hey, I'm a musician, but I also do this, right? And so I felt like I had to like, do something. And so I'm sure we all love, Guppy and them. And they were like, hey, I think they saw like a video of mine. Rolla sent, if you know Rolla as well, an incredible person, an artist in the space, brought their name up. And this is before we even knew each other. But they saw a video of me and Benny hit me up. He was like, hey, we need to have you. And I was like, okay. And I was very nervous because it was my, it was like 2 years now, right? Or like maybe a year. It was like, was it 2022? It was 2022. It was 2 years before, like it's since lockdown. And so I haven't performed yet. It was, and I'm never really like that nervous. I love performing. But I haven't performed in such a long time. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if we're going to be up for it. And so I was kind of nervous. And so
it was almost like a new community, like a community you recently become a new like part of. Yeah.
And so
I didn't know you like that,
Yeah, I did it. And so I appreciate the love. But I also think a lot of people were just like, who the hell are you? Because they were like, I had a lot of people come up to me and they were like, this is your puppet that we see, and that's awesome, that's cool, but we never saw this. What are you doing? And then that was when I was like, okay, I need to start, showcasing that as well. And I think it's just, it's progress as I've been saying, like, you have to be able to like continuously challenge yourself to grow, especially as an artist. That really means something. It shows that you're doing something. And so, yeah, it had to take that for me to continue on, really pushing the music boundaries for me in Web3 and stuff. And so I'm very blessed for that opportunity. And then from there, I started doing way more shows in Web3 and then outside of Web3, of course. But that was the beginning of like, okay, me coming back and saying, hey, and then, from there, doing Deadfellas, which was incredible, and, all these things. And so I think for me, I do love it when the Web3 space really sees the musicians in the space. Like, I think a lot of times, unfortunately, when it comes to NFTs, musicians are like fighting, saying, hey, we're here, we are also doing these things. It matters. It counts. And we tend to get dismissed a bit. But to have people in the space see like, hey, no, this, the musicians have something to say. And to really support us where it's like, hey, we're doing this event. We would want to also make sure that we are showcasing Web3 and not only, or like artists in Web3. And not only, getting artists outside of the space, like really being able to, blend that because we're here and we're doing it. And so it makes sense. And I appreciate those that do that. Like, so all the people who are supporting art, music in the Web3 space, you are appreciated.
Yeah, man. No, I love that. I mean, and you crushed it, and it's been awesome to see the progression
thank you, because I know you were there. You're like,
I was there, man. I was rocking out. I was like, damn,
like, I didn't know you did that. I was like, oh man, thank you so much. It was really good it was really cool. It was like a very intimate event, and I just saw all these faces, and I was like, oh wow. And then I saw like the mouths, and I was like, yeah, this is what I kind of do. But it was beautiful, and it was really cool to be like in that element and have y'all see it.
Yeah, I can empathize a bit because, I DJ and I produce music, but I actually didn't do any DJing like during COVID, anything like that. I lay low, and then that was the whole rise with like NFT Now and the NFT space. And so when I like got back into DJing,
so you were DJing prior to.
Oh yeah, like for years prior to all of that. I've been DJing since since college, honestly, like 2000. It's like 2008, and then like DJed festivals during all my time at like Billboard and Spin and stuff. And so it's funny, like the NFT space didn't know that side of me. It was actually Blau who got me into NFTs and Web3 originally, because
we still don't know that about you, Matt.
Yeah,
you have to let people know.
You gotta let them know. But it's funny
because it is this thing, because like in this space, you do see a lot of DJs and stuff, and a lot of us are like, "Oh, did you just become a DJ because you just became a DJ?" Like, you fell into it while, because while like maybe COVID or like just being in Web3, which is fine. But to like hear that you've been doing that, to hear that,
oh yeah,
you have, even if you were going, you will always have my respect, of course, but there's a lot more. I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot more to say. Wow, you've been doing this. You've been, really working on that. So that's really amazing. Yeah. And I guess my question is, did you just stop because, why did you stop?
So I'll tell you. And so it was interesting. During COVID, particularly, I've always been very fortunate in that my DJing has never been my primary source of income. I was in music and media for a long time, founded Billboard Dance, ran Spin Magazine, ran Content Modern Luxury, all the time DJing on the side. I got some amazing opportunities because I knew everyone in the dance music space. Played Tomorrowland a few times, played EDC, like all that. It's some great opportunities, Ibiza. But like for me, I never had to rely on my main income. And so when the world shut down, it put like so many of my friends who are DJs, especially not DJs at like the top level, were really in a perilous place financially, right? Like their entire livelihood had been snatched away. And so as things started to open up again, as opportunities came, I didn't really feel comfortable taking DJ gigs because I didn't need them in the same way as like, a lot of my friends who are in the space, because I was like, they've been out of work this whole time where I've still been fortunate enough to like have a job in media.
Yo, stop making me love you. Like, what are you doing? That's so not.
But
that's
it's
wow.
like I had to keep it real, but like, and also I was super busy, like building NFT Now. But like, true. So what was interesting was the first NFT NYC, I actually like, that was like my official return. I DJ'd like, and it was the first one ever, but it was the first one since I got in the space, 2021. And, I DJ'd, Ape Fest, the boat party, Brooklyn Steel. Like, I think I did like 6 gigs that week, and everyone was like, "Wait, what? You DJ?" And it was I had a similar moment, as you had, where you're like, people are like, "Oh shit!" Like, we only knew you like as the dude with the red background on Twitter.
It sucks,
like,
right?
Now, yeah.
And here I am, like, oh yeah, people only see me as this or whatever, and I just did the same thing to you. And,
that's okay,
but it's not good because I think, but it also just lets us know about like what there are people willing to like hear what we have to say and see what we wanted, like what we have always wanted to do, and to like have us get our our art out and our music out and stuff like that. Because I didn't like hearing this now. I'm like, wow, like it makes so much more sense. But it also is really beautiful for you to like you took that pause, but then you came back and. I guess for me, my question to you, here I am interviewing you.
Yeah. The best podcaster conversations. Let's
go. Is when you finished, like when I like finished my performance, it was this, wow, I really love what I'm doing. Did you get that? Like it was something where it was like, cause I was already doing things with the puppet, and I was like, okay, if it has to be this way and only that, I guess I would be okay with it, right? Because music was, or like, was in a weird place, and it still is kind of in a weird place, but it was just like, you're only making money off of touring, that's it, et cetera. And so, and in the industry, it's just so much. And so I was just like, but if I perform, and I really, this is and I told this stuff to myself, I haven't really told anybody, but like, we're being honest in this podcast.
That's right.
I told myself that if I, based off of this performance, is going to determine like, if I want to continue on to do this. Like, and if this is like something that I love, if I feel like, wow, I felt this, this is going to be something I'm going to want to continue on to do, because it's so much more. Like when you take everything away, it's just like, oh, am I passionate about this? And I guess that's my question for you. Did you feel like, oh, this is something that I need, right? Like it becomes like I need this. Like this just changed, like this love that you really can't put in words. Is more felt as all artists. But yeah, I just wanted to hear that, because that's kind of how I felt after my performance. And I was like, oh.
I realized how much I missed it. You know what I mean? And like, because like until you feel it again, like the energy from the crowd and all that, like that exchange, like, it's easy to compartmentalize it and all that, but it's like, once you feel it again, you love it. And, for me, one thing that I think is like, it was really special too. It was like kind of like sharing that with like new communities and like all these different gigs across there. And like, that was the NFT NYC where I ended up meeting a lot of people that I was friends with online, for the first time in person, and for them to like be like, come to the gig and like see it. It was really, really special. And, for me also, it's like, I keep that going. Like, obviously I have to pick my battles, because running NFT Now takes a ton of my time. Building this, it's got to take all, but it's like, last year I had one festival gig, but it was Tomorrowland, and that was really special. And so like returning there after what had been 3 years, it's just like the best experience, man. That's one of my favorite festivals. It's like they do an amazing job with production. They've also gotten into the NFT space, which is cool. And so they had like, I was cool like meeting their whole team, like I've been doing their Web3 stuff, but like, that the level of like production that they bring, the level of like care that they bring, they're on another level. It's been one of my favorite festivals for a long time. And so like just being able to play, and that was like the biggest stage I'd played there too, was just really, really special. And I got to like, it was like a reunion, like all my friends who were DJs who I used to see all the time, because, when I was at Billboard Spin, I was covering festivals. I was, all over the place. I was at every festival, everything. I hadn't seen some of these guys in like 3 years because of COVID. So it was really good to catch up. And you better believe I was onboarding left and right. Let me help you get it set up on NFTs, Web3, all that.
I think one more question, and then you can
okay.
go
I got you. Let's go.
Culture, like that culture, like even you're talking about in the authenticity, like the authentic relationships, and you saying going to festivals, and like I can just hear like the love of just music and passion in that. what do you think is a way to bring that into, or not even like, because I mean, I'm not saying that it's not in the Web3 space or in music space, right? Like, how can we, if anything, find ways to bring attention to that, and also like make sure that that's happening, and which is happening in Web3, because we're onboarding, right? We're like trying to get people to, and it's more of like an onboarding thing to like say, hey, this is a way for you to also find freedom as an artist, etc. This is a tool. Like, how do we find ways to like, because it's something that I always struggle with, but I do want to see others, out here. I feel like the more the merrier, the movement, like having authentic artists who are like, hey, we're here for this and that, it matters a lot to me, and it helps it helps with, the narrative, and trying to change the narrative to something that we all like approve of. Just like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what music. This is music. This is what we're out here. This is our heart out here. And I guess that's my question. Just like, do they even ask these questions? Are they like, oh, I don't know.
No, it's a great question. Like, it's something I think a lot about, because so much of my, my career has been in music. One of the things that like I think is really critical for like the future of Web3 music, and all the forms that it takes, is like really tapping into the power of fandom. For me, what's interesting is like, growing up, my dad collected rare Beatles memorabilia. He's like the biggest Beatles fan I know. And so I understood from an early age the idea of like collectability around music, like that value proposition. It's like, you know what? Not anybody can go to stream Abbey Road, but not everyone has the signed vinyl signed by all four Beatles. And now that signed vinyl is a immutable, trackable token that can also be your backstage pass. It can get you the meet and greets. It can get you the fan club membership. It's like, creates this incredible direct connection between an artist and a fan. So like that always clicked for me. But I also have to recognize that for many people, there's a bit of a gap in understanding on like the value proposition, because we went from paying, $15, $20 for one CD to $9.99 for all the music in the world. And so like the ownership of that, like the value proposition of ownership of music is something that I think a lot of the masses still don't quite understand. And that's one of the reasons why I think like the Web3 music space is still nascent. And I do think that when you characterize it in terms that people do understand, which is like fandom and access and like exclusive opportunities to like reach these artists that they look up to, and have these incredible moments that mean the world to them, like that's where like we can get beyond talking about the technology and more about the incredible things it empowers.
I agree with that. I think we kind of focus a lot on technology is great, but you want to get people in, and what is on the surface of that technology is the art, the music, those things. And so you really want to make sure that is what's pulling people in, and then keep them in with technology. And so I agree. And yeah, I love vinyls. I want to get back into that. Collecting.
Yeah. I want to hear from you, man. Like, obviously as a musician yourself, navigating this space, seeing the different sides of it, like what's your state? What's your take on like the state of music, NFTs, Web3 music, and like what do you think it'll take to kind of like take this ecosystem to the next level?
Yeah, so I really think, and it's weird because I feel like it's right there and it's always dismissed. IRL concerts, like, right off the back, like tickets, easy. But I really feel like there is this thing about making sure that folks understand like what's happening, like the culture. For me, I came into music, in Web3 with the idea, or, with the notion that, hey, this is a bunch of us disrupting what we knew, what we saw, like what we thought we knew, the patterns and stuff like that. And so coming into, Web3, and seeing like the difficulties of just people not really understanding, music as an NFT, and having to like kind of, teach that in a way. And I guess, there is a stubbornness in some of us, like me, where you're like, even though I don't really act on it because I understand, right? Not everyone is going to consume things or understand things as you, because you all may have different experiences. But it is something where I'm like, man, okay, how do I find ways to make this work, to have conversations of just like, okay, you like music, dope. and you like visual art, cool. Maybe we need to blend the two sometimes. Maybe that is a way to have those who are here, understand, oh, this is a way of getting this new collectible and seeing it as a collectible, but also seeing it as something like fine art as well. I think there's music hasn't even been looked at, to me, to my knowledge, as something as fine art. So I feel like even in being in Web3, it allows us the flexibility to be able to not only be this one thing. We have, scenarios where music can also be fine art. We have scenarios where it can only be a collectible that is fine art. Why not? But I see it as it not only ending there in the digital realm, right? We have these things that we can use as, hey, we have a concert happening. You get a discount ticket, or you can go to the VIP thing. And that was when I did my event in February for Black History Month with a blockchain. That was my goal. My goal was to kind of expose other artists as well. And, I had Web3 artists on, as well as, artists in Web3 on, and artists that were not in Web3 on. And I wanted to really just expose people to what you can do with the technology, but also still know that the culture is here. This is a culture that we're trying to create as well, right? Music is first and art is first, and this is what we're getting. But you're just using, NFTs and, digital collectibles to get, access to this event, which why not? Because now you can build on that, right? Now you can reward people. That was my goal of just exposing people to that. And so I think there is a lot of examples for how this works. I just want us to be able to really support that. I feel like it's just always someone else has to do it. There should be a movement of just okay, we're all doing this. Why not? Let's do this. Because I feel like the louder it is, the more people are going to be are going to talk about it, and are going to be willing to be are going to be curious and be willing to look it up and figure out, oh, this makes sense and why not? And I think that's the goal for us to be doing that. And I'm seeing more. I would say music in the space has definitely progressed from where it was in 2021. And so that when I look back, I'm like, okay, we're making strides. And so yeah, I do see progress, and so I'm hopeful. I'm out here, so that's I'm gonna be out here, and I'm gonna continue on to find ways to make this work. As you know, with my project that I'm dropping, the beauty supplies out of do-rags,
let's talk more about that.
Yeah,
tell me more.
Yeah, I incorporated a vinyl with that, and so my thing was more there's a lot of things that are with this project, which is why it's so important to me. On the music side, I wanted to make sure that I made a vinyl. I wanted to make something physical, and a lot of times we were like, oh, let's make a physical. A lot of the visual artists that are solely visual artists, they just have the pieces and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I'm a musician, right? So what really connects? I mean, I could do that, but I'm also just it'd be dope to have a vinyl because, that makes sense. And I was like, okay, dope. If we can have, a vinyl as a component to collecting a piece, I think that would make a lot of sense. It also, really ties in the music into this. But I also wanted to make an example or be the example for others to kind of follow. I think when I came into the music space, Mid-Journey wasn't there yet, and Dolly wasn't there yet. So I mean, now people can do what they want, and that's cool. But there's also beautiful thing tapping into Gen Art, right? I decided to do this project, but I did it with. I have a dev on my team, Dan Chapman, incredible. So I had that privilege. But there are a lot of devs in the space who are incredible. And as an artist, a musician, a lot of times it's always just oh, how can we find ways to make our art and, do these things for the covers and stuff like that. And I was just it'll be really cool if a lot of these artists now found ways to collaborate with these devs. Because now it's not only solely of them trying to find someone or outsource their work to someone. Now they're actually a part of it. And the, like this project was a collaboration with the dev and me. And my dev didn't know, Dan didn't know anything really about like, gen art or anything. I kind of knew that, and I had the visuals and the ideas and stuff, but he knows how to code. And so it was my way of just saying, hey, how do we find ways to like, work together to make this happen, to then make this piece that we can also like now put on vinyls. And so I feel like we're just, checking off boxes with that. You also have ChatGPT now, so you can do that as well. But there is some difficulties with that as well. So, it's just my way of also showing the example of that when it comes to the music with this project. And I do hope people see that, and it gives them, if anything, like, an idea of like, oh, there's not one way of doing something when it comes to like putting your music out or your work out.
Amazing. What let's dive in a little bit about like the generative element. Like what excites you about generative art? What inspired the like getting that element going for you?
Yeah. So after the One Egg collection, I was like, okay, this is dope. I did it. I did this. I did a whole bunch of things. It was animation. It was music. It was sound, voiceover, all those things. And then I started seeing like, I became friends with Eric Snuffro, and I brought him onto the
great guy. We love Eric.
We love Eric. Him. We do. I also became crazy enough good friends with Kevin Rose. We love K-Ro.
Hey. He's been on the podcast too.
He's been on?
Yeah, he came on right before Moonbirds.
Yeah. See, like, and so, and they love Jen. I mean, of course, Eric, is the founder of Roblox. But, Kevin, like, I think it was Kevin, and like, I mean, I was cool with Eric. I'm not sure how it came about, of just like where the love came, but who brought the love to, like, maybe I was like, oh, I'm starting to get this. But I definitely was like having conversations, and I had a lot of people come up to me. They're like, you should do a gen art project. And I was like, should I? Like, I don't know. I don't really get it. It doesn't make any sense. And then I started to like look at more of the work. I feel like it's so weird. Like in the space in Web3, it's like everyone's kind of in, or at least at this time, it was like this like isolation in a way. And if you were like kind of new, you didn't really know what was going on in Roblox. It was like its own thing. And I stumbled across it because I started to become friends with other people who, everyone knew about it. And I was like, damn, I must be out of the loop or something, because I'm just finding out about this. But then I found out, I went on the Roblox site, and I just started seeing all these works done. And I started, and then it wasn't only that. I started also going like FK Hash, just started seeing all these beautiful works being done. And even works from like artists that I loved, not even knowing it was code. And I was like, man, so this is all code? And they're like, yeah, this is code. And from there, I was like, gosh, and that's a challenge in itself. And I'm also someone who's like, oh, we're going to try that because that's dope. And I'm like, we have like, and that was what it is. It was for me. And it just, from there, I started building on. I'm like, oh man, like working with someone, like, this is what we're talking about. When we talk about this space about, hey, we can collaborate. This is what I was also seeing too. I was like, hey, this is where we collaborate, where you have the artists like legit collaborating with the tech, and in this way, like that is the collaboration. And so I started finding that to be more beautiful. But I also like, and it took a while. And I always like, I definitely like through this whole process, I definitely recommend a lot of people just like, check it out, ask those questions, do some research, talk about it a little bit, because it really is, and I don't even know how to find the words, but it is really something. It is really incredible to see how you can make like legit use a tech and you can see it form, right? And you're seeing the code form, and then what is being created, like the output of it, and you're like, man, this is what my ideas came to, and this is how you were able to find the code to like make this work. So but like seeing like things of like the squiggle, of course, But even other works, and there's just so many that unfortunately I can't say the names of the artists, but like, I definitely was just like, okay, there's not one way of doing this too. It doesn't have to be this. You can like really be, it's really your idea on this and really showcase that. And so yeah, I was like, okay, how do I find ways to do this? And I'll be honest. That's why I say shout out to Eric, because there was a lot of conversations that had to happen. A lot of conversations. I mean, maybe not even a lot, but conversations need to have happened for me to really make sure that I was putting 100% into this new medium that I was trying to try out. I think a lot of times people just want to try things because, oh yeah, this is cool, which is fine. But when you want to try, you better make sure you're putting 100% in it. And people like Eric were like, definitely were like, okay, if you want to do this, if you want to try this, you better put 100% in it. And that's why I appreciate him, because he definitely wasn't someone who was like, yeah, let me give you a tap on the shoulder. He's like, no, you like, if this is what you want, this is something that you want to do, cool, but you need to put 100% in this. And he said it in his own type of way, in his own type of words, of course. He's incredible. But that's how I took it as. And it made me want to go back, because we had a whole different idea before, and it made me go back and really, like, think about what I'm trying to put out and why. And even though it's in a different medium, that does not mean I should restrict myself from doing it. It doesn't mean that it can't be possible. Find the ways of how it can be possible, and so like, yeah, like that's it was a journey even within this whole, like, progress. So I mean, like with this whole thing of, like, making this happen, and I think that's why I find it to be so beautiful. As we, like, at the end, it was something where I was like, I'm just gonna try this out and do it to, oh no, I'm going to learn what I need to learn. I'm going to make sure I'm able to have these conversations. We're going to get into the ugliness of it. I'm going to, like, have to take pictures of my locks, do what I need to do to see if we're getting to, like, getting it right. Say, hey, that doesn't work. Like, I think for me too was just a lot of, like, yeah, it's not doing what it's doing, what we needed to do. Like, how do we get it to that? Or the curvature of the braids, a lot of those things. It also depended on me being honest about things, but also honest with, like, my dev, and my dev being honest with me and just like, hey, this is what we can do, right? And us trying to find ways to, like, make this work. And the frustration, all of that, right? It was necessary for us to still get to this awesome product. And for me as a musician, there's a lot of things I do have control over, and at B, there's a lot of things I have control over too. But this one where I didn't have as much control, like, it was a 50, like, it was more just like, yeah, I didn't have as much. You
had to relinquish some control, right?
Yeah, and it was like,
that's powerful.
Yeah, and it was legit. Give and take. What are we doing? And you had to be honest in it. It was, kind of like a relationship. You got to be honest with that. It's not going to work. And for us to get to this, to this product where we were all like, wow, this is incredible. I think for my dad, he's never seen himself as an artist or something like that. But this was like him, stepping into that, and he was just like, wow, I can't believe we did this. This is, like, amazing. And so that's a beautiful thing too. So, like, to say, hey, no, we can do this, right? And because a lot of times when it comes to, and I think I definitely went on a rant. You asked me this question, Matt, and I definitely went, God knows where.
No. No, I love where we ended up, and we're talking about the generative art, branching into that new side of the with your art form, and let's talk a little about the vision too. Like so Beauty Supply is out of do-rags. This is going to be out on Prohibition July 19th, which is the day this pod is running. So out today on Prohibition.
I know. Let's get excited like it's today.
Yeah, let's get it going. This is exciting, right? So just tell us a little bit about like the overarching like vision behind the project, and also like I think it's the first project on Prohibition too. It's a new platform.
Yeah,
so
it's the first project on Prohibition. It's also, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I think I'm kind of sure, one of the first projects that actually is going to like display box braids and locks right on the chain through Gen Art, I would say. And yeah, and I kind of was getting into this when we were like talking about it, but this project, as I'm saying, like it's so vulnerable because I went to this talking to like Eric and stuff like that. I remember Eric saying, he was like, I'm gonna be honest, he was like, when you're doing something, make sure you really know what you want to say. And I said, okay. And I was like, I know what I'm saying though, but I didn't really know. I think my goal was really to make sure like, hey, I'm just going to put something out there or whatever, because I'm trying something new, which is cool, but I had something to say. And, maybe Eric knew without knowing, but it was, and it was, I did, at this time I did like a drop on Super Rare. And if you haven't seen it, it's called, Chop Balls on a Tree, and it was it's on Super Rare, and it was a music piece and it's a music NFT, and I was using my locks, and I manipulated it in a way where it was like a tree branch and stuff like that, and I had these balls on it, and it was really cool. I loved it, and I had a few people asking me questions regarding that, and it was in a way where there was a disconnect there, and that kind of triggered me. But I didn't really want to talk about it. And it's like, whatever. And after that conversation with Eric, I was like, maybe that should be, what I talk about. And it wasn't even so much of maybe, it was like, this is something I should talk about, but I'm afraid to talk about it. I'm afraid to talk about it because I'm not sure how it's going to be looked at. As a Black dude, as a Black artist, it's always like this very difficult fine line of like, oh, what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. And I was afraid. And even though I'm someone that's very vocal about these things, I still find my places of just like, oh, I'm scared to talk about this. And I wasn't too sure why. But I did know, like, from these conversations, I found myself kind of triggered, and they bring me back to like, oh yeah, hair. And like a lot of times growing up, hey, you need to shave your hair, or you can't have your locks, or you're not going to get that job, or you're not going to be able to do this, you're not going to be able to do that. And what I found so odd was I'm hearing these things like, it brought me back to that place from this, conversations in this ecosystem. And here we have like, JPEGs and PFPs of like, these animals wearing do-rags. And I'm like, oh, did we not know that these do-rags actually are here for, hair protection? Like they're legit are used to protect your hair. And so I found it to be so odd how that is, if anything, revered and loved and respected, even though it wasn't, a couple years or several years ago. But it is now. But, talking about something like that when it comes to like my hair, it's weird, or there's a disconnect there. It's, I would say, a place where we don't talk about it or something like that. And so, and so this project, I was like, okay, how do I talk about this? And I would talk to people like Kevin Rose and stuff like that, who were definitely helpful and supportive, just like, how I would approach this. But at the end of the day, it was more of like, okay, my voice, and also Patrick too. Patrick, incredible. But it was very difficult to talk about this. But I was like, it needs to be out there. And I said, okay, we're going to code box braids and locks, and we're going to put these bad boys on the blockchain, and we're going to do that. And my goal is to make sure that we're showcasing, like, the beauty when it comes to our hair, the art that goes to it, the process, the time. Sometimes when we get our hair done, it hurts, right? Like, and people don't understand that. And that's kind of I want to showcase like the colors, but like also you feel dope and fresh when it's done, right? It's these beautiful things that I was trying to bring to life through this project. And I wanted to show people like what we do, especially as Black folks, people that, get box braids and locks. We do these things, yes, because we want to protect our hair, but this is us. This is also our beauty. We love these things. This is art to us as well. We love the designs that we make with them. We love how they look. We love how they sway in the wind. This is us, and accept us for us. And that kind of is a statement I'm saying. And then also for me is accept me. I need to accept me for me, even more sometimes. I think sometimes I'm afraid sometimes, and I can understand the world is not easy on people like me sometimes. And so I find myself, even though I always say I'm very vocal, or I think I'm really good at hiding it, I do find myself hiding sometimes. And so this was a way of me not hiding and really being out there and really putting that on the map, but also showing how much I love my culture and showing and educating people on like what this is and what this is about, and being willing to take that and take that education in and say, oh, this is a beautiful collection, and I'm learning so much more. And that's okay. I want this to be, something that also educates as well. I know I'm not the best educator, and I don't expect to have all the answers. But I do hope that this one leads to more conversations, leads to more visibility on narrative. And that was something I cared about as well. And I really do deeply care about more now than ever is narrative, and making sure that the narrative is out there. But also really building conversations about these things, and hopefully seeing things change in the world. But you can only do so much things. But yeah, that was how this came about, and I added all the other things with it. But it was that is how the beauty supply is out of do-rags came to be, and the title is the beauty supply. To also let people know is a store. It's usually found in predominantly Black areas, or in inner cities where a lot of people of color, specifically also Black, will go to find hair products necessary for their hair. And majority of the time, do-rags would be there. And so my whole thing was like, okay, go into the beauty supply, but also seeing that there's no do-rags. And so you have no choice but to let the world see what you have, like what your hair is and all that. And it was more me also saying, hey, this is what this is who I am. And, the do-rag is a way of like trying to hide that, but you don't have the do-rag. So you have to let the world see what it is, and they have to accept you for who you are. And so that is also the statement that I'm making with this incredible project. And so I'm just very thankful. I'm seeing a lot of love, and yeah, it's really cool. But that's why it's very vulnerable, because I'm like, oh man, like I didn't expect this to be. When you're in it, you're doing it. You're like, okay, I'm doing this, whatever. But when it comes to like the drop date and all these things, like, oh my gosh, they're gonna see this part of me, and I'm not sure that I'm ready. But it's a beautiful thing when you do it, and you're like, hey, at the end of the day, this is who I am. And so I'm very thankful for the love, and it's on Arbitrum and Prohibition, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting to like put this on all blocks and stuff, and then randomly out of nowhere, Prohibition came and they're like, hey, we're doing a drop. I mean, we're launching our platform. And I was like, what? You are? Okay, maybe. And then I talked to Jordan and the team, and Eric was like, I love them. And I was talking to Jordan, and the team was incredible. And they said something about, we're like definitely the punks of the space or something like that. And I was like, I'm all about disruption. And when you say something like that, I'm like, yeah, I gotta go with you. And so it was at the right time, just right timing, and they also just very have been very helpful and supportive of the narrative and what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to bring to the space. And I'm just very thankful to have that support, especially with this project. So shout out to Prohibition. Shout out to this Layer 2. It's my first time being on the Layer 2. Shout out to Size Chad, who is also incredible too. So this is a lot of people. It just there's just a lot of pieces that are connecting to the puzzle, and it just makes a lot of sense. And it made a lot of sense to just go with Prohibition. And I think if anything, I'm just really excited and happy to be dropping this with dope people around. So yeah.
Love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all the backstory, the meaning, getting vulnerable. No, I love listening. I love learning about it. And I think it really carries through in the art as well and everything you've done around it. I was lucky to get a couple sneak peeks of some things that you got cooking for the week. So I'm super excited, man. And congratulations, for leaning into your authentic self for it. That's really powerful.
Oh, thank you so much. I think, I wanted to make sure that I was like, I really want to do some NFT now. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. But I also,
here we are.
but I also am just very, I just want to get this story out as much as possible. I think it's important. This is something that I was like, this is very important. It's very important to see, something that's very connected to who you are, but to also a lot of others. And to see it being documented on the blockchain through art. And so I really want to get that story out there and this story out there and let it continue. But it was something where I was like, no one has ever done box braids or locks with Gen Art. We're going to do that. and people are like, oh, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And we're going to figure it out. And I'm just happy we figured it out. But, there's one thing about having an idea and you're like, okay, we're going to do this. And you're definitely seeing all these outputs and you're like, oh, no, this ain't working. Or this, I don't know. And then people I also am someone, I'm about, you can tell me about this too, like how you are as an artist, right? When it comes to getting feedback, I mean, I don't know. You definitely have to go to the right people. That you can trust, but it definitely is something where I'm like, I hope you love this, because if you don't love it, I'll be in shambles. But also, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna fix this. But also, I feel like sometimes you kind of know. I don't know. You're kind of like, I don't know if it's gonna work. I don't know if it's gonna work. And
so you're just seeking like that second opinion to kind of bolster,
And so there are a lot of people that are like, no. And
straight up.
No. But there are also some people who are like just very lovely and nice, and they're like, oh, I see it now. Or I see what you're trying to do there. Overall, I'm just thankful for, people like that as well. And I guess I was like, do you do that with people? Do you tend to go with the playlist and like, hey, is this gonna work? What do you feel?
Playlist, I always say because I grew up in creative writing, man. So I was journalism's one element of writing for me. It was very practical application, but I grew up writing poetry, writing stories, writing songs, and so for me, the workshop has always been a part of my experience from an early age, and so it built really thick skin for me. Mm-hmm. I do not I am not sensitive around if you give me constructive criticism, I love it. You know what I mean? I do not take shit personally. I'm if this is I'm yo, I don't want don't pull punches. Tell me what's good about it. Tell me what's terrible about it, and tell me how it can improve.
But it makes you better, right? It makes you better. And I think that's something I do. And I don't know if we want to have this conversation. It's kind of spicy.
We love the spice on NFT now. Let's go.
But I do wonder, how do you feel sometimes when it comes to artists hearing that, or like, I don't know. It's so.
Not everyone's ready for it. Not everyone. A lot of people take it personally, and I understand that as an artist. Like, I get it. Like, it's only because I was trained from an early age to like separate myself from the work in a sense. And like, yeah, sometimes it still hurts, right? It still hurts a little, but ultimately I recognize that that's part of the process to like refine the diamond. You know what I mean? Like, like you don't do that without the flame and like all that, And so for me, it's like, I built up that like thick skin to it. But if I'm, if an artist asks me their opinion, like, I'm not necessarily, if I don't know like that they can take it, you know what I mean? Like I'll cushion it. I'll be soft about it. I'll be like, this is really dope. I love this about it. I love this. Here's an idea about this. Like, maybe this could be something different. Again, it's just my opinion. You got to be true to you. But it's like, there's a nice way to relay it. But sometimes other artists have been like, yo, tear it apart. Just go tear it apart. And then I'll tell them how I really think.
Yeah, and I also do want it too, because I feel like sometimes, like even with gen art, right? Like I feel like you have to have a taste for it. Like some people still don't really get it, or it's still kind of new to them, or whatever, or they maybe need to find that piece or that collection that really clicks with them. But like even with me, like I had some people say, "Oh, it's not my thing," and I was like, okay, and I was like, and I was like, okay, and I was like, okay, cool, like and it's and that's for something for me. I'm like, okay, sometimes it just don't hit for some people. How do you take that when you're just like, okay, it doesn't hit for some people versus, oh, it just isn't good, you need to make some fixes, right? Like
that's a little hard. It's a little harder, right?
Yeah.
Because like if it just doesn't hit, it's like then it's like the black box. Like the black box, I don't know why it's not working. Like, is it this? Is it that? Is it them? Is it me? Like, you know what I mean? Like that can like, I'd almost prefer like a clear cut like criticism than like it's what they say. It's like that there's nothing worse than indifference, right? Like that's kind of that vibe, right?
But I guess that also depends on like how big your vocabulary is when it comes to dissecting and explaining art and what you're trying to get from it, or what you want to get from it, or what should be giving from it. Yeah, so just so many things. I want to just ask that question because I feel like I was seeing a few things on the timeline, and I was like, oh yeah, I am starting to see a little bit of more people kind of be a little bit spicy, and it is kind of, but it also is like, oh, I don't know.
Why do you think that is? Is it just like bear market climate? Like or people are getting like, it's like stress levels are high, like tensions are higher, like sales aren't coming in. I'm curious, like what do you think is kind of contributing?
Yeah, I think it's all those things possibly. I think there are some people who are like, yo, I'm being, some collectors are like, hey, yo, yeah, people are hitting me up to buy all their work, and not all the work I want to buy, or I don't feel like it's there. So, and or it's not hitting me, but I don't know if I can say these things, right? And that's another thing. Another thing, is also just like, hey, there are people who are like, are you doing enough to like find different artists, or like, what are you stuck in this bubble? Are you trying to find other things? Are you trying to find other works that are going to like really, I would say expand your palette, but also like things that you feel like you would want to collect. So that's another thing. And then you have the bear market and all those things and those vibes. But I also just feel like there is this need. One thing for me, I am definitely like, even though I know people like the spicy takes, and I'm saying them like, oh yeah, people getting a little spicy, and I'm like a bit, it's like, oh, I don't like, it's too much. You don't have to go that hard. But then I'm like, oh, it is refreshing that we're human sometimes. And I mean like, not where it's, offensive or stuff like that, but you're just like, okay, you're just saying your take. And it's, I think sometimes we are kind of in this echo chamber, toxic positivity thing. And I'm like, it's not the world. And so, but I do I do like really appreciate those who are able to like, I just feel like sometimes your opinion doesn't matter. Like unless someone asks you for your opinion, right? But if you really want to be constructive, if you really want to help somebody, I don't think it's wrong to like, especially if that's someone that you're like cool with or whatever. I don't think it's wrong with like hitting someone in the DMs or like, outside and saying, hey, why not this or whatever. And I feel like maybe that's happening. I don't know if it's enough though. I don't know if that people are doing that enough. I also don't know if, I don't know if it is the right thing to, as I'm starting to like think about it, if it's the right thing to like, say things publicly of just like, oh, this isn't good, versus like going behind the scenes and saying, hey, this is not working, or like, and this is why, and stuff like that. But I also feel like, as a space that's a small, ecosystem, we do have a lot to prove. We have a lot, and there's a lot of pressure on us, right? And we have, we have the scams every day. We have, media get into scams and stuff. And so it's like, how do we find ways to like make sure that we are being loud about these things? And so good art, people rallying around that and but also like dope artists and all types of artists, these things having these things at the forefront really does help change that narrative. And so I'm all about that as well. And so I just really want to find the balance of, I think the balance really for me is just making sure that everything's authentic. And that's kind of what I want. I just want authenticity. So yeah.
You and me both. But Ed, if there's a spicy take that you like, that you want to get off your chest, you are welcome to do it right here, right now.
Spicy take, and I might follow.
What's my spicy take? Ooh, that's a good one. Like off the top of my head, like a good spicy take. I mean, look, like, I think it's something that like we've been saying for a bit, but like it feels a little spicier when I'm having the conversations. It's like, like Web2 media is fucking broken. Like, you know what I mean? Like the entire media model that publishers are doing right now is broken.
Web2 media, the Web2 industry. We have people on strike right now. Listen, it's just, and it's also like, man, they're about to destroy us, Matt.
But it's like, like we wrote like a whole manifesto around this for, before the Now Pass launch and all this, like about that. And it's like, these high things, but it's like, when I see it day to day, like I was, I was at Cannes Lions, which is like, a big, like it was interesting, man, because it was like a big meeting point for like the media industry, for ad tech, for like all of that. And like speaking to a lot of the legacy media execs out there, I'm like, they're so caught up in this broken machine. And like, it's so clear, like, from the top down that like, this is just, it's a clickbait race to the bottom. It's heading the wrong direction, all these things. That's why we're trying to do it differently. But it's like, you start to feel the spice when you like actually have that, rather than being real clinical about, well, this is why it's broken, this is this. But then you start to see like really good people, smart people, like people who are hardworking, people who are trying to, who are just like caught in that machine. And, dog, like, I mean, I was too, when I was in the legacy media world, like, it was all about clicks. It was all about traffic. It was all about,
you're just doing it. Yeah. You're just, this is just the way. And then I think that's what it is for all of us. We're like, oh, it doesn't have to be that way. And then when you do it, you're like, I don't even think that's a good way. And so, but like, now you're kind of, there's like not that many of people that think like you, right? And so now you're going back to these places.
And it's like, and it's easy to be in like the echo chamber a little bit, because I've been talking about tokenized media for a long time, and like I've been talking about, like, to me it's so clear, like this is the next frontier. It's like with the rise of AI disinformation, we're going to need verifiable like authenticity, on-chain provenance, like gotta know where everything came from. And then there's like the tokenization of communities around media, like what we're doing with Now Pass and Now Network. But it's like all of that makes so much sense to me. And then I go in and I realize just how far behind a lot of like the industry is. And it's like, they're not going to figure it out for themselves. Like we're going to have to like bring this to them and do it in a way that makes sense. And so, I don't know if it's a spicy take, but it feels spicier when I'm like having those conversations.
I don't think it's only spicy because I think that's what it is. It's only spicy because people just don't understand. And you just gotta do, and that's what it is, right? Like you just gotta do what you do, and then people will come along when they're ready, which is a crazy thing, but it's just how a lot. I think the saddest thing sometimes is just like, there's one thing about, oh yeah, you're innovative, but like people don't talk about how just because you're innovative doesn't mean, just because you're innovative, that does not mean you're gonna have a whole bunch of people following you and supporting you, right? Like
you still got to meet the market where it is,
yeah.
right?
And but it also doesn't mean you're not going to get people saying, oh, you're not doing it right, or you're wrong. You're not going to and I think that's kind of, we don't talk about even the pushback to that. Like that can also do some things to you. Like, oh my gosh, I'm having these conversations and they're going nowhere, or these conversations that's turning into like debates or arguments, or like I'm being dismissed because they don't see what I'm doing, or they don't see it as creative. And so you have to be the only one. You have to be your own mascot in a way until, hopefully people will, come along and say, oh, wow, this happens. And hopefully it's sooner than later, right? But that is kind of what it is. And I think I think a lot of times we forget about that battle when it comes to innovation and innovators.
100%.
Right? When it's like, oh, you're innovative. And I'm like, it's a dope title and name, but people don't know, like, there's so much baggage that comes with it.
Yeah.
But that's the journey. That's the journey.
It is, man. All right, your turn. Spicy take. What's it? What do you got?
I still think that, and maybe it's not that spicy, but I still think a lot of platforms. I gotta be careful. I'm just gonna say platforms. A lot of platforms don't know how to move in this space currently. And they're like going to things that are already been done, assuming that it's going to help them, copying, like they're going to things that have already been done, assuming that it's going to help them be able to move in the space. But that only traps them when it comes, because the space is always changing. And if you're not able to really, have your own vision, then you're not going to be able to move with this space. And I see that, and I constantly see it, and I'm not sure how I can. And not all spaces, not all platforms, but a good amount. And I'm not. I don't know. My goal is to help, but I also feel like a lot of artists can help, but I feel like a lot of times they're not trying to go to artists, and which is weird because we are the voice of reasoning, or we have a lot of vision. That I feel like a lot of platforms are missing. And so I don't know. That's my take on that. I hope I don't get destroyed. That's me. I don't know. Like, what do you think in regards to to that?
No, I mean, I think it's like there's a lot of
it's like it's dated sometimes. I don't know. It's like
it's like there's in a space that loves to champion itself as innovative and always pushing the envelope forward. There's a lot of old school mindsets and like knee-jerk reactions and things that are kind of that are not new ways of thinking, still prevailing.
Yeah. And so I think for me, the goal is to always make sure that we're trying to not only do incredible things in the space, but also that we're trying to widen the space. If we don't think about both, it's not going to be what we want it to be. And I think sometimes people miss the thought about thinking maybe now folks are doing more. I haven't seen many yet. I'm not saying all platforms. Not saying y'all. I wouldn't be talking to y'all. But there are others, and I'm using platform very vaguely because I want to be careful.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's as spicy. I'm too PC.
No, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, I think that is it for me. I think I'm tired of folks not having intention in what they want to do, and it shows with their products. And you're like, okay, the content seems cool, but what is the purpose? And if you don't have that, the simple purpose, then the whole thing is going to crumble, and it usually always does. So I think The starting point should be the intention when it comes to these platforms, and what they're trying to do, and also like how they're trying to like really be innovative. And yeah, I'm going to stop there. So
there it is. Well, what you said about widening the space and I think and then touching back on everything around visibility as well. I think the last thing I wanted to ask you before we jump into that last segment on is I know you mentioned the generational wealth fund, so I just love to hear a bit more about that and what the mission is there, what the vision is there.
So when I did a generational wealth fund, this was pre-Bria, like really pre-Bria, and I was like, man, I know the beer's coming. I really want to be able to be in a position where I can buy art from artists of color, specifically Black artists in the space, because unfortunately, we still it's very it's very difficult for artists of color to still sell the art. And so I was like, okay, I need to find a way where I can have this fund that goes to supporting that. And so I also wanted to, and I felt like this was a way to also be an example for like other projects that they want to incorporate this, because I wasn't seeing that. So yeah, like I have been able to buy art, and we'll be buying art soon. I'm going to be trying to buy more, get back into it this year. But yeah, we've been collecting and trying to also showcase like, hey, this is a way of like supporting each other. It was something. That's one thing I did love about coming into Web3. When I first came, it was this beautiful thing of just like, artists being able to support each other. And I understand that it's very difficult, for artists to be able to do that. And so I really want to be able to, like, if anything, show that, hey, we have something here. It may not be that much, and royalties are kind of gone now. So it is very difficult to keep it going. But, it's something that I still champion, and I try to do as much as I can with it. And I also still try to give visibility to the artists that we do collect as much as I can with my platform, with all those things. And hopes that, it just helps the artists still want to, be out here, creating and, figuring out Web3. Of course, you don't have to only be solely in Web3, but it still is, I would say, necessary for artists like me to be here, because this is the future. I believe this is the future. And so yeah, that is the Generational Wealth Fund. I also didn't want to add, sorry, I didn't add this in regards to the beauty supply is out of durags, that it's a 333 quantity supply, and amount is at 0.09. I mean, yeah, which would be bridged to Arbitrum. But yeah, just want to also include that as well.
There it is. Well, amazing. Looking forward to all of that, and I appreciate everything you're doing with the fund.
I appreciate you, man. I learned so much more about you. Crazy.
I love it, man. No, this is the best. This is why I love these conversations. Before we wrap things though, let's jump into our final segment, bullish or bearish. We'll start off with the easy one. Bullish or bearish music NFTs?
I am absolutely bullish on music NFTs. I have a little bit, but
let's hear it. Yo, unpack that for us.
But I do want musicians in the space to not feel, and it's not, I don't think it's the musician's fault. I think, we're kind of conditioned outside of Web3 to think, oh yeah, we can only do it this way or whatever. And so I really want musicians in the Web3 space to not restrict themselves of how they can create, their music NFTs or music within the NFTs or things like that. And so, yeah, I am bullish on it. I just also want, musicians to just try to, be as creative as possible and not give a fuck. I think that's what it is. It's like getting caught up in like what, don't give a fuck. Do just what you feel like is going to, like, that's calling you to do it. And I feel like it'll take off even more. Also, to all the haters out there, we out here.
I love it. I love it. Next one, bullish or bearish AI art?
Man, oh, you're evil. I am, okay, you said AI art, so I'm definitely bullish on AI art. But, AI art is not only to visuals, right? Visualization. We also have writing. We also have these things. And as we're seeing what's going on with Hollywood, we're seeing like, how AI is legit a big factor when it comes to, writers being on strike and actors being on strike. And so I think for me, I'm definitely for the art, but I also don't want this to be where we have to where people or industries can take advantage of, artists. Acting is also an art, right? And so I care about balance and us trying to find ways to make this work. I understand that AI is a tool, but let's make sure that it's a tool and not something that is, being used to take advantage of people, which unfortunately humans are really good at doing, and so I just want to make sure that that's that. But I am bullish on AI. I feel like I'm still gonna get the story. I feel like no. The AI conversation, it doesn't even matter. It's just like, oh no, you're either for it or you're not. And I'm like, no, there's gray here. There's some gray.
You're like, I have a nuanced stand. There's nothing wrong with a nuanced stand.
Oh gosh.
All right. Last one. Bullish or bearish on bull run this year?
So I try not to be a pessimist, but and I'm going to say, hey, I am bullish because based off of certain people. Do I know when it's going to happen? Is it because I don't know? I thought it was going to happen last night.
Kind of felt that way, right? It felt that way.
And yeah. I don't know. I think overall, I would say, whether it's a bull or a bear, just make sure you have your ducks aligned. Like, you have your things. You're just on point. And you don't I don't know, you don't act like it's all good. And I think there was this hopium because I came during the bull run, right? So
oh yeah
I didn't see anything there. I didn't know what that was. And then I've been in the bear. My drop ended up the day of the bear. Like I've been in this whole cloud of it. And so, but it's also, it definitely is a learning experience. You're like, okay, this and that. And it humbles the hell out of you. Not saying I wasn't humble before, but it's okay, you thought you were this. No, you gotta be very strategic. And I think just to keep that in mind, and to do a lot of the things that I felt like. And so, yeah, I guess I am bullish on the bear because I want it to happen. So be bullish on the bear, but I am still gonna make sure I'm moving the way I need to, like I was doing. So I say that I'm bullish on the bull market. I'm bullish on the bull market, but I'm still gonna be moving as the way I was kind of moving in the bear because I think moving in the bear definitely made me, better as like how I need to
100%.
Yeah. So I would say that's. I don't know how to answer that. I answered it.
No,
right?
it makes a lot of sense to me. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Right. So,
yeah.
like
you learn lessons. You learn lessons.
A lot.
You get perspective. You're like, what was I thinking? Like, you know what I mean? You're like, look at this. It was so obvious, but it's like, like euphoria is contagious, right? Like, and you can't. It's like, like you can't blame people for dancing while the music's playing, right? But you just don't. You don't want to be the last one left on the floor.
And I think a lot of people were the last ones. And I mean,
yeah.
It's just crazy. It was just like. But I also was talking to a lot of people, and it's crazy because a lot of people that were in the bear Were you in a bear prior too? Like, were you here for like? Or
So yeah, this was actually like my third crypto cycle.
Oh my gosh,
you know,
man.
because I first started dabbling like 2013 with Bitcoin. I was the top signal then. I bought the exact top of the market. It crashed like 2 weeks later. But you know, and then got that, realized I was like onto something 2016, 2018 with Ethereum, and then that crashed. And like, but you know, like what was interesting was, you know, in those previous cycles, like crypto and, you know, they didn't call it Web3 then, blockchain or whatever, like that wasn't my main thing. Like it was something I thought was super interesting. I was like playing around with on the side. I thought it was cool. I like believed in the tech, but like, you know, when the crash happened, it was like my focus kind of returned to like music industry and media and like, and all this. It feels very different when like you're living the bear, you know? So like even so it's like, you know, when you're living it day to day, you're showing up in that space. You think a lot about some of the things you could have done more strategically during the bull, and that kind of sets you up for hopefully success the next time.
I would say also, right, like in the bull, a lot of us were like ETH maxis. I also was new, right? So fine.
Yeah.
But now we're
that's part of it. Yeah.
We're like all over the place. Oh yeah, sure. Drop on that chain. Like, you know, it's just like, it's just, there is this beautiful thing, I would say, that came out of it that was just like, oh, don't be so like stuck on rigid, one chain, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah. Oh, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, man.
Bullish or bearish on ordinals? I've been seeing a lot of NFT now, and that's my question.
Great question. So I'm bullish. Okay. I'm bullish. And I'll tell you why. You know, and I'm not actually like I don't hold that many. I'm not like really as like super active personally in the space. But you know, I got into crypto through Bitcoin. Bitcoin was like in 2013. I read the white paper. I was like, I believe in this. This is really cool. I sent it to like all my friends. None of them really listened to me, but it was like, I was like, this is dope. Like, you know, I believe in like this, you know, alternative to centralized financial system. This is right after the crash, you know, and all that. And so like, you know, so for me, like Bitcoin has always held this place in my heart as like, this was the OG blockchain. It's like, you know, it's got like, you know, it kind of set all this into motion, all that. And there's an amazing like community there. And obviously there's a huge amount of liquidity there, and, you know, as well. And like, what's interesting is ordinals is now kind of unlocking the potential there. And like, it's bringing that like builder culture that really kind of left Bitcoin for Ethereum and other places that were more builder friendly. It's bringing that back to Bitcoin, which I think is really great. And you know, it's been really dope. Like our Not Financial Advice Twitter space, which we do Tuesdays, Thursdays with Trevor and the Ninja Alerts crew. They've been like, he's really on top of that space and has done a great job of like covering that really well and helping people understand more about it. So I'm bullish on the ecosystem. I think it's also like one of those things that like there's a lot happening on it really quickly. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm like bullish on every project happening right now. I think it's in that like explosive growth phase where like a lot of these things aren't going to last, but like I do think like ordinals as a protocol and like NFTs on Bitcoin is definitely going to be a lasting thing. Okay. And that's actually pretty exciting.
Okay, good.
And what's cool about it too, Ed, like you said, a lot of like, so what's interesting is, you know, a lot of artists came into the space like they bought their first crypto in order to buy NFTs, right? You know, and so like to get involved in the NFT space. So a lot of it, for many of them, was ETH, right? Like you said, it was like ETH was that. And so you have this whole like kind of new generation of users who for whom like Bitcoin hasn't really played much of a role in their experience. You know, it's kind of like, cool, maybe I bought a little bit of that as like a store of value because people told me to, but like, you know, it's like you don't really use it every day, all that, like, you know, but like what I think is kind of cool is that you have this whole kind of like new generation, like rediscovering Bitcoin in a way, like through ordinals, which I think is interesting. So like, I'm bullish on it. You know, it's like, I'm not like, you know, this is going to take over everything or anything like that, but I do think that it's going to endure in some form.
Okay. I'm glad I asked that question. I have another one.
Okay, let's go.
I got two more. This is one of the two. Layer 2s. Are you bullish or bearish?
Bullish.
Layer 2 summer?
I'm bullish on LT. Let's go. On LT, it's like, here's the thing. I'm a big believer in Ethereum. I'm actually not a big believer in these new L1s they're trying to displace Ethereum. Like I really think like Ethereum, like, I'm not bullish on the Ethereum, on the quote unquote Ethereum killers. I think Ethereum has the network effect. I think it has the builder community. And I think like it has the roadmap and the plan to really improve the infrastructure of the chain to address the areas that are at issue. I think like the successful merge is like really significant, but that's going to take time. And we don't have the luxury of time for, like bringing this tech to the masses. And so we're going to need really good scaling solutions. And so I'm very bullish on the L2s, especially the ones that are built on around Ethereum. I also think that like they're still going to have a role to play even as the Ethereum blockchain upgrades.
Do you think there's going to be a huge, like convergence of like, a convert, like, oh, L2 is not the new Ethereum, but like, I don't know. Like, I see L2s being more prevalent, if that makes any sense.
Well, especially as we think about NFTs and as less of being like, all right, if you're gonna mint a one-of-one artwork, right, and you want that provenance, you want that like cachet, like Ethereum is still the best blockchain to do that, right? Yeah. Like that's the place to do it. But like, let's say you're trying to, airdrop 1 million NFTs to like, everyone who's like, like tuning into the Super Bowl or something like that, or you're doing something like what MoonPay did with like the Hollywood Horror Nights, where it's like you can claim a free NFT, like, and there's like millions of people coming through or all that, like that kind of scale. Ethereum's just too expensive. It just doesn't make sense to like to do something like that there. You're gonna need an L2 for like the really cheap, inexpensive, sometimes even free, like NFTs and like massive supplies. And I do think that's going to be a huge part of the next cycle, is going to be much more affordable, lower price point, higher supply NFTs. And I do think that L2s are going to be like have a really important role to play in that. But I don't think that like, to me, like, I still don't think anything, like, I don't really see something eclipsing Ethereum.
Yeah.
At least at this stage. Yeah.
Dope. So we're in alignment. Okay. What are you most bearish on in this space?
Ooh. You know what, man? Like, I'm super bearish on like the blur farming that's going on right now. You know what I mean? Like,
isn't it it's like, why? It just, I'm like, look what you did.
Yeah, like, look what you did. Exactly. And it's like, it's unsustainable and it's hurting like everyone, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, besides like the huge whales who are just like manipulating markets to earn, to farm like, the token points and all that. Like it's bringing prices of collections down, even though holders are holding steady. It's just like the way that it's set up, it's set up to incentivize dumping into dumping. And like, it's just having this, like, I think it's having a negative impact on the space. I think that it's like,
I'm seeing a lot of my collections, like, going into Blur, like, and I'm like, man, those royalties were just, a legit for, trying to buy art. I mean, I understand, but it's just like, gosh, it is sad seeing. But yeah, I agree. Now when you see it, people are like, oh, what did we do? Or like, why is the space this way? And I'm like, listen to the artist. I don't know. Like,
yeah. And like, what I'm hopeful is like, with some of these new like token standards, being able to hopefully enforce royalties in a better way. Also, like, just like making, just having like ecosystems with artists where like it's a values-based community. And it's like, what? It's kind of like on Super Rare, there's the 10%. It's like, if you're going to transact on Super, you're going to respect the rules of the engagement there. It's like, there's always going to be some platform like Blur where like people can do it free of, where traders gonna be traders, farmers gonna be farmers, degens gonna be degens, but the people who actually want to like be collectors, who want to be patrons of the arts, like there's a place hopefully, where royalties are respected there and artists can still like benefit.
Yeah, and I see that kind of happening a little bit more. I'm seeing more of like the culture coming back and finding new ways to like, enforce it. I think they're gonna have to figure it out though with code somehow, some way. But like,
yeah.
But yeah, okay. It seems like we're all in agreement, Matt. So we're like best
There
friends
it
now.
is. Hell yeah, man. Let's go. This has been an awesome conversation, man, dude. Like, honestly, could go a whole nother hour.
I was like, oh man, I must be boring Matt. I hope he's not.
No, dude, no. Like, we could go a whole nother hour and a half. But you know, we'll save that for the next time. Ed Balloon, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation and super excited for your new project and everything to come.
Thank you so much. A pleasure. Love NFT Now. Thank you so much, y'all.
Well, there you have it. I could have easily gone another hour with Ed, but we'll save that for the next time. Do check out his new collection. Beauty Supply is out of do-rags, out today on Prohibition. I think it's so cool to see Ed continually evolving his artistic style, embracing new formats like generative art, and challenging himself as a creative. I think there's just a lot of great insights to unpack from this conversation, from his entry into the space, rise on Twitter, and the way that he thinks about NFTs as a new creative canvas for all of his different pursuits. Well, if you enjoyed this conversation, want to encourage you to leave us a review at your podcast provider of choice. We love to see your feedback. The stars help a lot in helping surface this to new listeners. And we will see you again next week on the NFT Now podcast. Thank you.